You see similar conditions economically today to the German hyperinflationary environment of 1918 to 1923, and you wrote, "In my opinion, the Fed is actually misleading the public by pretending that it is tightening monetary policies, when in reality it is pursuing policies which are likely going to increase inflationary pressures and depress real wages." So could you expand on that for us and give us your take on why would the Fed do this? What's the reason behind it?
First of all, the reason is very simple. All governments and government agencies and politicians lie, period. There's no exception. They will never tell the public the truth because the truth would be unpleasant, and since they want to be re-elected or reappointed and so forth, they will pursue a policy of misleading people. Number two is very clear to me, and if you observe the last 40 years, that the Fed has largely pursued policies that were favorable for Wall Street, the moneyed establishment, the wealthy people. You look, for instance, at the increase in interest rates that we had over the last 18 months. It touches different people and different corporations in a very different way. Say, myself, I have assets, and among these assets I hold cash. Now, whereas 18 months ago on my cash I did not even earn 1%, now I've been just offered yesterday and today for a 1-year deposit 6.25%. You understand, for me the increase in interest rates has been favorable because I'm a net creditor. I have assets which I lend out in deposits and which I hold in stocks and in bonds and so forth and in real estate. But the poor people, and by poor people I don't mean the poor, I mean everybody but the 1% richest Americans, these people, they all suffer when interest rates go up because they have credit card debts, they have student loans, they have mortgages. Then some mortgage holders, they're lucky because they have fixed their mortgages, they have fixed rate mortgages. But a lot of people around the world don't have fixed rate, they have variable rates. And so when interest rates go up, the interest payments on the debts go up, and so forth and so on. So the increase in interest rates hurts some people, or most people, but it benefits the well-to-do class. Number two, it also benefits successful corporations that have a net cash position. And also, I'd like to add to this policy of the Fed. If you look at real wages, just today someone, actually not one, two different parties, sent me a chart of real wages since the Carter administration, since 1979. For men, real wages since 79 are down moderately, not up. Now, in nominal terms, wages can go up, but as you know, in the last 2-3 years, the cost of living has gone up dramatically. And here I need to make a further point. If you have an income of, say, $10 million a year, and if you have an income of, say, $100,000 a year and 2 children and a wife, your food expenditures as a percentage of your income is much higher with the income of 100,000 than with the income of 1 million, 10 million, because someone who is well-to-do is not going to eat 10 times more than a poor guy. Actually, very frequently he will eat less at lower cost because he has a large refrigerator, he has storage space and so forth, so he can buy wholesale or, economically. The poor guy, he has to buy for the day and for the months because he doesn't have money to buy for the next 6 months. So rising food prices and rising prices of necessities like health insurance, school fees and so forth and so on, transportation costs to the city, parking lot fees and so forth, they hurt the poor guy much more than the rich. For him, he doesn't care. And so the reality, and we have statistics about this, the reality is that the standards of living of most people has been going down. But of course, the administration in the US and elsewhere, they say, oh, look at the stock market, it's going up. The economy is so strong, when the reality is that in real terms people earn less, and a lot of people are struggling. We have statistics about that in Germany and in Europe and in the US.
rates. And when it comes to the Fed and their negative influence on the economy, at the last FOMC meeting, they raised rates by 25 basis points, something everybody expected. And Jerome Powell made the most confusing statement ever. He said, "I would say it's certainly possible that we will raise funds again at the September meeting if the data warranted. And I would also say it's possible that we would choose to hold steady, and we're going to be making careful assessments." So he's basically saying nothing. And this sort of meaningless statement is something Powell and central bankers use time and time again. You mentioned that governments lie. Obviously, I would think that central bankers lie as well. Is this sort of language just used to misdirect and manipulate people into thinking everything's going fine behind the scenes?
To some extent, yes. But to another condition is that if you look back at the last few central bankers in the US, say, you had now Powell, before that Yellen, before that Bernanke, and before that Greenspan. And before Greenspan, in my opinion, the US had the last good central banker, which was called Paul Volcker. After him, the Fed started to print money, and under Greenspan, at least, they had a Fed chairman who knew something about economics. That I give him credit for. He is an accomplished economist, but he became also a politician that wanted to reward the politicians, the administration, and Wall Street. And so he printed money, but not as badly as his successor, Mr. Bernanke and Miss Yellen, and so forth. And Anna Schwartz, who wrote the monetary history of the United States with Milton Friedman, she badly criticized Mr. Bernanke and his reappointment as a Fed chair because she said that he's basically a money printer and nothing else. So yes, the Fed and other central banks, so you look at the ECB in Europe, it's even a greater disaster than the Fed. Or you look at monetary policy in Japan. Now, the other day I got a report that said that real estate prices in Japan were up something like between 40 and 60% year on year for luxury properties, okay? And inflation in Japan is, say, officially over 3%, but that doesn't reflect the reality. The true nature of inflation in Japan is higher, and it is more like 4, 5, 6%. Anyway, the interest rates on 10 years Japanese bonds is still only 0.59%. So in real terms, inflation adjusted interest rates in Japan are still extremely negative. And whenever you have negative interest rates, you have basically an inflationary impact. Now in the US, I'd like to point out, interest rates are higher than they were 2 years ago. That destroys the demand of lower income recipients. As I explained, they struggle because the prices, the cost of living of the household is going up more than their income. Now, they are hurt, but the rich people, the people that buy private planes, that buy yachts, large yachts, and so forth, that play golf, they're not hurt.